How are you? My name is Houston and welcome back to another video. I've had a pretty relaxing weekend, just hanging out, gaming, doing some chores. In a lot of ways, the ideal weekend. It just seems like so much lately that there's always a birthday party, there's always a wedding, there are always these things to go to. And I do recognize that having this very large group of friends is a lot different than having no friends. So I am grateful to have so many people that I'm close with and people who want to invite me and my girlfriend out. But for me, somebody who is naturally pretty introverted, a lot of the time it feels good to just sit right here, do this exact thing. So I'm going to use this beautiful Sunday as it was intended to be used to hang out, chill, decompress, play some video games. I feel like I'm making decent progress here. I got the first SMG gold, I got the first launcher gold, and I got 4 ARs gold. So, not too bad considering how much I've been able to play. I've just been going like mindless zombie mode, playing hardcore. So yeah, I'm just going to keep on doing that. While I do love smaller maps to an extent, I really think that playing Vanguard broke my brain. I think DOS House took parts of my brain and literally removed them. Like a lot of parts that have to do with like patience because I can only handle so much of these tiny maps. Okay, Gala here, that's not bad. It is small, but it's open, so it doesn't have a bunch of like winding nonsense in it. One that I just can't stand is like Pit. Stakeout is obviously, I mean, dude, it's like living in a New York apartment with like 20 people, and that apartment is the size of a closet that you pay $5,000 a month for. I guess when I think about that, I can't really say much because I do live in Seattle and it's pretty expensive here too. My point being, I just can't play these maps for as long as I did on like Vanguard, for instance. Oh my god, frame drop. That may have been the longest any person has ever survived at the start of Stakeout. And speaking of the patience when it comes to just playing a map on Call of Duty, I've been thinking about it a lot lately in terms of my training. The way that I'm viewing my current training block is like a rebuild. So I'm kind of viewing it as a complete dismantling of everything that I thought I had to do to train before. And I'm basically trying to become a different athlete or a different person. Obviously, that's a very difficult thing to do because, like with anything, becoming different than a way that you're used to is like the great challenge of life. And it takes a lot of patience. So as somebody who historically has never been the most patient person on the planet, it's hard for me to take my training slower. As a bit of backstory, I've never been somebody that played any team sports for my whole entire life, and a big reason for that is because I never wanted to let the team down, which is understandable to a point. I only did things that I could do by myself because I justified that by thinking, oh well, if anything happens, like I'm the only one responsible, so I can only blame myself. A big reason why that has turned into a bit of a negative for me is because I always just push through things. And that's a double-edged sword because you want the motivation to be able to push through things. Like when I ran my 50 miler, I don't want to be somebody that gives up easily. When you always push through things, you don't give your body a chance to recover and to really be at its best when you need to show up. So finding that line has always been very difficult for me. And you may remember that in April of this year, 2024, I injured my hamstring while setting a PR in the marathon. And it was probably like a grade 1 strain, but because I'm so like voracious in my training and because I'm again kind of impatient and I don't want to take a very prolonged break, I just kept running. Like I ran a 50K, I ran my 50 miler on a hamstring that was probably like 70 or 80% strength. And I don't say that to brag in any way. I say that because I think that it was probably the wrong decision, even though I did finish those things. So that's cool. I was able to do it, but I held myself back from getting faster, and getting faster is my main goal right now. So whenever I would try to do those speed workouts, I would suffer a sort of like re-injury, and it wouldn't be anything that would stop me from running, but it would be something that would make it difficult to do one of those speed workouts again. This is where the problem lies, because I never had the patience to take a prolonged break and truly fix that injury. Now, I just started a training plan via my coach that I hired, and the first thing he told me to do was take 2 weeks off. Okay. And that was very difficult, but I did it. And yesterday was my last workout of the first week of this rebuild. That last workout yesterday, Saturday, was my first long run. And for me, a long run has always been like at least 13 miles. But because my runs this week, being a rebuild, have been like 4 miles, 3 miles, and this long run being only 7 miles, it's really hard to hold back. It's really hard to run a lot slower, because not only am I reducing mileage, but he was like, hey man, you just got to slow way down, which again, the logical side of my brain, totally understand. I'm like, yeah, you know, you got to slow down to build your body back up. You have to build those foundations that I'm always talking about on this channel. Not just the physical foundations, but the mental ones as well. Because in the same way that you're training your body, you are training your mind. Obviously, I've spoken a lot about potential, and not only my own, but what I believe that pretty much everyone is capable of. And I think that while patience can be a thing that holds you back, having an overly inflated ego is another thing that can hold you back. I take a lot of the stuff in Ryan Holiday's Ego is the Enemy book to heart, because I have known, and I mean, we've probably all known, many people who just can't seem to understand that they're not the center of the world, or that, you know, everything that they believe isn't like the word of God. In my experience, in the long run, ego just takes us to places that are filled with shame and despair. And it's good to have an identity. You don't want to be somebody who doesn't have a concrete understanding of who they are. But when you begin to let go and stop obsessing over who you are, then you really have the potential to become who you might be. One thing that my coach keeps reminding me of is that I can't let my ego get in the way. It's almost like when you have that ego, it's like a different person in your head telling you what you know you can do, but you don't really understand the consequences of it. So yeah, like I can do the faster workouts, or I could do those actual true long runs that I'm used to, but the consequences are something that are always looming, like the consequences of re-injury. And then the re-injury, you know, the domino effect of that is never being able to actually do what I want to do athletically. It's such a funny game we play with ourselves. And I think that every single person is battling this to some extent. I think that pretty much every single person, if they have a understanding of what they want out of life, and that's honestly one of the hardest parts here. I think that this stuff, when it comes to process oriented things, you have to be able to understand like where you want to go in order to put yourself in a position to be patient about that thing. I mean, that's a whole other thing, like what one should do with any given day, and like how do you find meaning, and yada yada yada. I mean, that might be a thing for like a whole separate video. The really interesting thing that I've started to notice about my videos is that the more I make and the more I repeat certain things, I get closer to understanding what I actually mean by them. And I guess what I mean by that is that these things are kind of like a video diary for me. They're kind of a way for me to introspect live. And I mean, obviously I'm cutting this up, so it's not like a true live experience, but a lot of the time for these videos, I've never written a script for a video. I might think to myself, oh yeah, like I kind of want to talk about this. So like when I was on my run yesterday, I thought, about patience and ego, and I was like, oh yeah, I could talk about that in a YouTube video. Why not? Yeah, damn. That'll humble you real quick. One thing that I try to do that I'm not very good at doing often is journal. Like a physical journal that I write in. I'm a lot better at it at doing it like after big events. So like after I run an event or after something just big happens in my life. But you know, the real power is being able to do it on the most mundane of days. Being able to just like conjure up things that you're grateful for, or just talk about the normal things in life and how they can actually like really add to your experience, even though in the throes of life you often think about just a normal average day as being boring. Whether anything big happens with this channel or not, and I kind of went into it expecting nothing because it's just something that I wanted to do. I think the most valuable lesson of it so far, and maybe the most valuable lesson that it'll ever give me, is the fact that it's allowed me to think deeper about my life and the choices I make and like how I just move about in the world. I don't think it's too hot of a take to say that the world would be a much better place if we all kind of looked at ourselves in that way. Like we all took more moments to introspect and to think about where we're thinking wrong. And I mean, there will always be areas where we're just not quite up to speed. Like I'm honestly excited to look back and like maybe some things that I'm saying in this video a couple years from now, or maybe even several months from now, will just sound ridiculous. As I've said, I try and keep a long view on things because it's a pretty good assumption that you'll have a fair amount of years to live. You'll live a long life. At least I hope that I do. And hopefully I keep learning from my mistakes, and that allows me to become more wise and allows me to pass that wisdom on to both my my peers and people younger than me, or hell, even people that are older than me. Like I'm currently helping my older brother and kind of getting into helping my dad get their health in order, because when you have family members who in a family like mine have history of things like heart disease and dementia, I mean, the number one best thing you can do to fight those genetics is a solid aerobic exercise routine, just like 90 minutes a week, and obviously eating better. I mean, you can't out exercise a bad diet. Even trying to get my dad, who's 56, to understand that it's not too late, and in a couple years you could basically give yourself potentially like a couple decades of a healthy life, and a life that you can experience, because nobody wants to be 100 years old but the last 20 years of your life you're immobile and you're miserable. But if you could live until 85 or 90, and those last 10-15 years you're still able to walk around on your own and you're not hunched over, and you still have that brightness in your eyes, that's the stuff that that really makes you think like, damn, I've lived a good life. I think we all have people in our lives like that. I mean, maybe it's the person in the mirror that we want to help out. This isn't a novel idea, but the best time to do that isn't Monday. It's not December 15th. It's not January 1st. It's right now. Don't be afraid to reach out, start that thing. Always start small, start measurable, because those are the things that basically trick your brain into thinking that you're making progress, but you are, because even small progress is good progress. That is slowly becoming something that just forever lives in my brain, that I even repeat to myself. So as always, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a good day, good week, and I'll see you on the next one.